Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place for everything related to Amazon FBA parallel and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring you another special guest. Her name is Meghla, and she's the co-founder of the India Sourcing Network. Basically, they specialize on everything that has to do with India. And this means, supporting you with your journey when it comes to sourcing, creating amazing events, which we're going to be speaking about on this episode happening next week in India, and much more. And I'm super excited to have Megla on today's show because actually, myself, I'm coming back from India. I was in India this week and I had an amazing first time experience going there, going to a trade show that is one of the biggest one in India's one. And I have a lot of insights to also share and have, a conversation with Megla and basically, provide you guys with as much value as possible. But in the meantime, Megla, I want to welcome you once more to the show and thank you for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Francesco, for having me on the show. And yes, very excited that you came to India, even though we couldn't meet up. The
I
timing
know.
didn't work out. But yeah, I was very happy to see that you came over here. And hopefully you'll join us again next year, too.
Yeah, of course, 100% I will. I know this year, unfortunately, is coinciding with my birthday. But
Yeah,
definitely the experience of going to India was amazing. Like, especially the fact that you have certain things in your mind about what you can expect about a country in terms of culture, food, and etc. But when you go there, you realize that it's even much more than that. Like the interaction with the people I had there, the relationships, the partnerships I met. It was amazing, and not only that, I had the opportunity to see in first person basically everything that's going on there in India because you could see you know a lot of videos and all of that, but it's not the same as touching the products yourself, seeing the quality of the manufacturers that are there. And I'm sure you see this on a daily basis, but for me, seeing the potential that India has that I haven't basically identified before was mind blowing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. This is one of the things that I find hard to explain to people. Like everybody, of
Yeah.
course, thinks that China is the number one place to go, right, for
No.
sourcing. But I mean, we try to explain to people, hey, India has a lot of opportunity. There's so many products that can be sourced from India. So
Yeah.
until and unless people come here, they see a trade show like this and they meet manufacturers, it's hard for people to comprehend and get a handle around all the different types of products that are available. And I mean, the quality of products is really good too.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to the trade show, even though that trade show was more domestic focused. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
go to an export focused trade show, the quality of the products and everything is even much better. And the
Mm-hmm.
designs that you see at those types of fairs are also catered to Western tastes and Western
Exactly.
markets based on their design requirements of those markets. So yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I think actually the domestic side of things, from my
Yeah,
perspective, was actually an advantage because you could find very niche things that you wouldn't find
correct.
in other
Yeah.
international trade shows. And I got some nice ideas, which, by the way, right now I'm in conversation with some manufacturers to see how we could potentially bring these products to, Europe and the USA. So it was very good experience, and that's why I wanted to bring in the show because I think we need to bring more to the radar of e-commerce and Amazon sellers. Why India is also an option, as you say. There's always people get into the close mentality that China is the only option, but
Right.
India has many things to offer as well. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what are some of the specialities when it comes to India. Of course, I saw them when I was there, but it would be great if you can also share with us, like, what are some of the niches or materials maybe that you would say India is really the place to be right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of sourcing from India is that there's so many unique products that are
Yeah.
only found in India. They're not found in other countries, right? So, I mean, you must have seen all of those beautiful products that are made out of
Yeah.
natural materials such as
Exactly.
wood, metal.
Mhm.
There's leather, glass, ceramic. So, and one of the reasons why these products are unique is because there are these clusters around India. There are different cities that specialize in manufacturing these products, and there are artisans that have been producing these products for generations, and the skill sets have been transferred from
Mm.
one generation to the other. And so there are manufacturers and exporters in these areas that actually leverage the skill sets of the artisans and they export to Western markets. So the manufacturers, exporters, they know what the tastes are of the
Mm.
Western markets. They have designers, they exhibit at trade shows overseas, and then they leverage the skills of the artisans to produce products that are then exported. So that's the beauty. And even though these products are made by artisans, it's not like they are only on a small scale. They are scalable, because sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
people think that, oh, these are handmade products, you can probably only buy like
Right.
50, 100 pieces. What if you want to buy a container? But that's the beauty of it, that this is scalable. So a lot of these manufacturers, they have
Yeah.
very good setups in terms of the factories, and they hire artisans, and they also they can hire artisans on a part-time basis as well in case they have large orders. So even though they're handcrafted products, they are very, very scalable. The second advantage I would say, specifically for Amazon e-commerce sellers, is the low MOQ. So because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these items are handmade, you could source maybe 50, 100 pieces as well. And that's very advantageous, especially if you're a new seller, if you don't want to invest thousands of dollars in one SKU, if you just want to maybe test a couple of SKUs and you
Yeah.
want to see what sticks, and then you want to sort of go grow big. So that's another advantage. Indian suppliers also have something that's known as MOV, which is minimum order value. Basically,
Yeah.
what that means is they'll say, okay, you can place an order of, let's say, $10,000, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can mix and match and have different SKUs. So that's also very advantageous, because that allows you to, again, experiment and test different SKUs, at a time, without having to invest a lot in one particular SKU. So that's another advantage. Then I would say English speaking, like most of the
Yeah.
suppliers, I'm sure when you went to the trade show,
Yeah. That's right.
communication was so much easier, right, with the suppliers as well. So sometimes in China, things get lost in translation, but that
Yeah.
doesn't really happen in India. In
Yeah.
terms of products, there's all of these handicraft products, of course, that are made from natural
Mm-hmm.
materials such as wood, metal, ceramic, glass. There's beautiful leather that's coming from India, and there are different types of leather. So there's equestrian leather, that is used for things like harnesses and dog leashes. So that's sort of a thicker leather. Then there's also leather apparel. So the softer
Yeah.
leather that's used for leather jackets or leather apparel and bags. Then we also have apparel and textiles. That's a huge category from India. In fact, that is one of India's major export sectors, textiles and apparel, and specifically cotton textiles. So India really
Okay.
specializes in cotton and other natural textiles as well, such as silk, wool. Um, and organic cotton is also another big category from
Yeah.
India. In fact, there are more GOTS certified factories in India than there are in China. So if you are looking
Yeah.
for organic, cotton, whether it's furnishings or apparel, then India is a really good place for that too. And then lastly, I
Okay.
would say eco-friendly products. So if you
That's right.
are
Yeah.
in that niche of eco-friendly products, there's huge variety and lots of options available. There's so many beautiful materials that companies are experimenting with. For example, they're using things like banana fiber or
Exactly.
cactus
I
or
saw that.
cork, those sort of things to make different products like bags and
Yeah.
stationery. Of course, these materials are still not, they're not produced at a mass scale. They're still very
Yeah.
niche materials, but that's the direction in which a lot of suppliers are going in. So in the future, down the line, a lot of these materials will become mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest, that the last part you mentioned, that's something that shocked me. That was the how open and ready they are for things that are environmental friendly. Like I remember seeing this manufacturer that his specialty is to do furniture with basically recycled
Yeah,
tires, right? So everything's made
yeah,
out of rubber, right? And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. And it's such an amazing niche because I'm sure if you bring this product to the US and you do an
yeah,
amazing brand about, what you're doing with the environment and basically using old tires to do furniture, it's like things like this. And that's one single example, but there were many more, as you mentioned, things made of X amount of materials. So that's something that impressed me
yeah,
because you never think that India would be one of the leaders when it comes to environmental things because that's the impression they give you from outside. But once you go inside, you realize it's a completely different world. And the last thing that I also agree is the MOQ. I remember talking to manufacturers at the trade show,
yeah,
and they could tell me, yes, we can do you 5, 10, 50. It doesn't matter. Like we can customize it and everything. Completely different than what you could see in China. That they want you a minimum commitment of 300, 500, and it can be very costly, right? And but yes, I
yeah,
agree with you. Yeah. Now another thing I also want to mention, so then we can jump into another thing, is the perception of scale,
yeah,
right? You
yeah,
also mentioned something that sometimes we might think that going to India, because these are handmade, these are not scalable. And I remember having the same conversation with a guy that was making products out of wood, and I saw this stand very small, and he was
Yeah,
by himself. So I said, yeah, this guy most likely is
yeah,
not gonna be able to do scale. But then he put his
yeah,
phone out and showed me his factory, and like hundreds of people inside in front. Like you have this massive network, but you come to here with just by yourself on one side. Like that's why you
yeah,
create that impression. But yeah, the potential is there. And just for everybody listening and watching this, I think, yeah, India is definitely something that you can bring ideas and can be scalable. Now, let's
yeah,
also talk about, how easy is to basically get a product into from idea to concept in India, right? Because we in China they're very used to working with molds or concept ideas and bring it to a drawing board and give you prototypes fast and all of that. So of course I haven't experienced that yet with India because I'm soon gonna start my sourcing journey. So I want to ask you, how is that process usually work with India? Are they very open to go like very personalized or try new things? So it's more like what they have on the shelves, and that's it. Yeah.
No, in fact, Indian suppliers specialize in customization, and
Mm-hmm.
they prefer that buyers give their own designs, and then they,
Mm,
customize or develop the product from scratch for buyers. So it's quite similar to the process in China. In fact, I would say that Indian suppliers are more flexible in terms of
mm,
customization and product
okay.
development. Especially if they see that you're a well established buyer and you're going to be sourcing in large quantities, they're very open to customizing and going out of their way to develop products. Maybe they have to source certain materials or parts separately that they currently don't have. So they're very willing to do that. Of course, the order also has to be sizable. If it's a very small order,
Yeah.
then it doesn't make sense for them to do that. But in general, they're very open. Many of the large suppliers also have their own in-house design teams.
Yeah.
So in case you just have a concept, you maybe just share it with them by email, or maybe just share a drawing, and they can bring that to life and make a sample out of it. So just as an example, recently we were helping somebody produce a wooden product, and
Mm,
they didn't have like fancy CAD drawings or anything like
yeah.
that, but they just actually gave us a drawing, like drawn by
Yeah.
hand, and then the measurements were written on the side, and then the supplier took that, they made a CAD drawing based on that hand drawn image, and then from there they actually produced the product. So suppliers are very flexible in all industries, whether it's wood, glass, and a lot of the more well established suppliers, they do launch their own designs as well. So
Okay.
every season, especially during the trade show, if they're exhibiting overseas at overseas trade shows, or even if they're at the Delhi Fair, which is one of the major trade shows here in India, they would launch their new designs, and you can also customize those designs then. So
Nice.
that's an option too. Yeah.
Good. Now let's also talk about how does it work in terms of the certifications of things and permissions, because we know different regions have different type of certifications and things that can be validated abroad. So what has been your experience with that? Have you seen that when it comes to sourcing from India, you need different type of maybe permissions or certificates to export overseas? So you see this is also something easy to streamline once you have all the things from the manufacturer. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing is that um, it's very important to make sure that you are
Mhm.
sourcing from an export ready supplier,
Mm, okay.
because in order to export from India, you need, or suppliers need, an import export code or an IEC
Okay.
code.
Okay.
And so it's very important to make sure that you have a supplier that can export. I have seen instances where people find a supplier online, they just place an order, and then the supplier says, oh, I
I
can't
can
export because I don't have the license, right? So that's very important. And then these export focused suppliers, they are also aware of all the regulations and
Mhm.
testing and certifications that are required. So that's why I tell people, just make sure that they are already exporting, or they know how to export. In terms of certifications, of course, different countries have different standards
Yeah.
and tests that are required, and there are labs all over India. So you have SGS, And all the major labs are over here in India. So all you need to do is send a product to one of those labs and tell them which country you're exporting to. The labs would know what certifications are required. There are some certifications that are mandatory, some certifications are optional. So
Yep.
based on that, they would do all of the testing and give you the certificates. And sometimes e-commerce Amazon sellers, they think that, oh my God, testing is so expensive, and how am I going to do it? It seems very complicated, but actually it's very simple. And sometimes it just
Yeah.
costs a couple of $100. And all you
Yeah.
need to do is just ask the supplier to send one sample to the lab, and they will take care of everything. So it's actually very simple to do. And yeah, I mean, it's not a hard process. In fact, we I myself, we have a toy factory that I run with my uncle. So all of our toys are
Mhm.
tested for European standards, US standards, Australian standards. So we do that on a regular basis. So testing is not a problem at all.
Good. Now let's bring to the table, why you're basically planning in India this amazing event, which is the India sourcing trip, which I find super interesting, especially because as we've been having this conversation from the very beginning, going to India and experiencing these, manufacturing and these suppliers one on one is completely different experience than from overseas,
Yeah.
like using something like Alibaba and trying to find them, which is not really the most ideal thing. So, can you talk us a little bit about this event? Like, what is the mission behind the event, and what people can expect to get out of this? Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you're sourcing from India, China,
Yeah.
Mexico, wherever you're sourcing from, I strongly believe that once you travel to the country, once you visit suppliers, you see products, it just changes your entire perspective, and it helps speed up the sourcing process significantly. Like when you're sourcing online, you're going back and forth with the supplier. Sometimes
Yeah.
the samples can take a couple of weeks, and then you're not happy with the sample, you're not happy with the quality, then you move to the next supplier. So it's a long drawn process. But
Yeah.
when you're there, when you're at the fair, you can touch and feel products. You can talk to suppliers face to face. You get a sense of how good they are at communicating, what their experience is. You can see their entire product range, in the booth, and you get a sense of what design capabilities they have, what
Mhm.
sort of unique products they have. So that's number one. I mean, there's such a huge difference between sourcing online and going to a trade show and
Yeah.
sourcing products. And so that's one thing. That's one of the reasons I started the trip, because I wanted people
Yeah.
to come to India to discover the products and
Yeah.
see it for themselves to believe it.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I think the other thing is that China is of course the main production hub, and it will continue to be the main production hub for a lot of
Mhm.
different product categories for quite a number of years. But the world is changing. Believe it or not, there was a survey done by BCG recently, and over 90% of the companies that they interviewed in that survey had
Mhm.
considered expanding their products
Yeah.
sourcing to other countries. And they had tried it, not only considered, but they had tried it. But only 55% of those who had tried were actually successful. So it's not
Yeah.
easy to diversify and source from a different country, because all countries are not China, right?
Yeah.
But it's really important, I feel, for Amazon e-commerce sellers to diversify, because you never know what happens, or what will happen with the international sourcing scene, right? I mean, what happens if China invades Taiwan, or tensions
Yeah.
between the West and China escalate for some reason. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Look at India, Vietnam, Mexico. I know, Vincenzo, you were in Mexico.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
another great production hub as well. So look at all of these different places. In terms of the sourcing trip, there are three aspects that we really focus on during the sourcing trip. Now, this is an 8-day trip, and the
Mhm.
three aspects are: number one, learning. So there's not a lot of information available about sourcing from India online. So we bring together a group of experts that specialize in different topics such as logistics, quality control, sourcing, finding
Mhm.
suppliers. We also get people who have experience in sourcing from India, and we put together a conference. So it's a 1-day conference called the India Sourcing Conference, and that's where you learn everything there is to sourcing about sourcing from India. And at
Yeah.
the same time, we also invite service providers, so
Mhm.
logistics, QC, any type of service that you might need to source from India. So basically, on that one day, you have everything you need, like you have all of the ammunition that you need to
Yeah.
start sourcing from India, the service providers, the information. And then we also have some coaches who join the trip, and these are mostly e-commerce coaches from the US.
Yeah.
So for the upcoming trip, for example, we've got Sean Hart, who's traveling with
Mhm.
his wife, and Mike Jackness,
Yeah.
Dave Bryant. and Divir Cohen from Israel. He's coming all the
Mhm.
way. Chris Thomas, Kylie, so a lot of different coaches. And the idea of these coaches is basically they will help people um, in identifying products that will sell better on Amazon, or how to differentiate products that are available from India. So the coaches are there every evening. We have mastermind sessions with the coaches, and then we also have a lot of sourcing experts. So within our team, we've got sourcing experts that have experience of like 20 plus years in wood
Mhm.
products, metal products, leather, fashion, apparel. So all of those sourcing experts are available to people as well. So that's one aspect, learning. The second aspect is sourcing. And for sourcing, we go to this trade show called the IHGF Delhi Fair, which
Okay.
is the main export focused fair in India. I know you went to the UP show, but that
Yeah.
was more domestic focused. And
Exactly.
even the companies there would quote in rupees, and they would quote the retail
Yeah.
price. But of
Yeah.
course, there were some exporters as well. But this fair is like the Canton Fair of China. So
Wow.
it is
Okay.
all exporters, all manufacturers. And so that is the perfect show to join for anyone who's looking to source products from India. So we visit the show for 3 days, and again, we have a lot of support at the show as well. We have a VIP buyers lounge where all of us get together. We do masterminds, and we do guided tours of the show as well with the coaches. And
Mm.
then we also do factory visits. So after the trip, we have optional factory visits to different cities. So Moradabad, which is the main production hub for metal and wooden products, we do factory visits there. And this time we're doing a factory visit to the city of Jaipur that produces a
Okay.
lot of leather, jewelry, fabric, and other types of things.
Nice.
So that's the sourcing part of it. And then the third part is cultural experience. And this, to me, I think is very important. And it really helps people understand the culture of India and just immerse themselves in the culture,
Mhm.
because even when you're sourcing from Mexico or China, it's good to understand what
Yeah,
really
of
makes
course.
people tick. Yeah, so we do a Bollywood night that's very famous, and people dress up in saris and Indian dresses, and we've got a live band playing, like a dance troupe who comes and does some Bollywood dances, and everybody's got to do some Bollywood moves. So Vincenzo, when you're coming next time, we'll make
I
sure
will
that
for sure.
you
I'm
get
known to
some
be a
Indian
party
wear
guy,
too.
so I will. Yeah.
And then we also go to Taj Mahal, which is one of the seven wonders of the
Yeah.
world. So we take you there too. And then the food, I put a lot of effort and time into
Wow. The food.
selecting
Yeah,
good
it's very
food
good.
for people,
Yeah.
because, I want people to experience all the different types of cuisines that are available. But also at
Mhm.
the same time, I want to make sure that the food that they get is, not too overwhelming, because too much
Yeah.
curry can also
I
not
know
be
it can
very
be
good on the
dangerous.
tummy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that we
That's
take
good.
care of. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
to
then
be
this trip is
honest,
an all inclusive trip. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, go on. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, so the trip is an all inclusive trip where all you need to do is arrive at the Delhi airport, and from there on, everything is taken care of for you. So we'll have somebody pick you up at the airport, take you to the hotel, we'll give you SIM cards. We'll
Nice.
also, all transportation, meals, everything is included in the price that you pay for the trip. And we really take care of people. We have surprises here and there. And basically, our objective is to make sure that we take care of all of the logistics, so that you can focus on doing business, and you can focus on learning all about sourcing from India, and sourcing good products.
I know. That's super I mean that's that alone, the fact that you basically land in India and everything's sorted for you. They take you where
Yeah,
you have to go and where you have to do business. That's game changer, because again, when you go to a country that you don't even know where to start from, I mean that is
yeah,
it's overwhelming, especially a culture or a region you've never been. It can be difficult, but on top of that, what I love about your trip is the community and the relationships you build, right? Is the opportunity to
yeah,
not only create friends for life, which is basic other Amazon sellers going to India to the same like you, but meeting with these basically mentors and coaches that go from different countries of the world with, you know, many years of experience that basically walk the floor with you. They give you tips, you can ask them questions, and it's basically a one-on-one experience that through a webcam or through email you will never get. And being there on the floor and
yeah.
basically seeing an idea, asking the coach, and then asking you, and basically creating that brainstorming and taking action is something that can completely change your business. So that's why, yeah, I'm very proud of what you're doing in India. And I think
Uh,
at the end of the day, what I like the most is that you are basically showing the potential that India has. It's basically,
Mm.
if you don't do things like this, you will never know the opportunity that people is missing. And I felt the same when I went to India this week. Like, I felt why I never look at India for sourcing before. So it
Yeah.
opened my eyes. So I feel people is gonna feel the same with this trip. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. And India can be overwhelming for some people because, I mean, there are 1.4 billion people here, right? So
yeah.
as
I
soon as you
know.
come out of the airport, you're like, oh my God, there's so
I
many
felt
people.
overwhelmed. So many people, so many cars. Oh my god! I said this is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, and the distances
So
as
what
well. You're not used to that.
the
Yeah,
distances, yeah, like from the airport to Greater Noida,
one
where
hour.
the fares are held one hour easily. And if it's traffic or office hours, then 1.5, 2 hours easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
know.
the other thing that we do is we prepare people ahead of the trip. So we do a lot of
Okay.
pre-trip webinars to make sure that they understand what to expect once they are over here, because
Nice.
again, it can be overwhelming. So we have like a 10-page document of do's
Mm,
and don'ts, and
nice.
how much money to bring and how to tip
Yeah,
people, and sort of etiquette at the trade show and things like
I
that.
know.
So that's something that I personally put in a lot of effort into, because it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, of course, of course. That's great, Megla. So yeah, thank you very much, for sharing all these tips and also bringing the highlights of why people must go to India. Of course, can you tell us a little bit more about, just to conclude, where people can get enrolled into this trip? I know there's still time, so people can still get involved, and where they can find all the info. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the next trip is October 10th to 17th. So it's about 10
Mm-hmm.
days away. But there's still time to join, because all you need to do is basically get your visa and
Yeah.
get your flight tickets.
Easy.
That's it. Those are
Yeah.
the two things you need to do. And visa is super easy. You just need to apply online. It takes 2 days for the visa to come through. And then, of course, your flight ticket. So those are the only two things that you need to do. And if you go to indiasourcingtrip.com, that's where you can get
Mhm.
more information about the trip, the dates, and everything else. There are two options available. You can either get a single room in the hotel, or you can share a room with either a business partner or another attendee.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. I'm gonna make sure to put everything down in the description. And in the meantime, enjoy India for me. I already did this week, so I'm looking forward to go again next year. But yeah, keep up
Yeah,
with what you're doing. I think bringing all this awareness to the India market is amazing. I'm sure for all the people that already is taking part on this trip, they're gonna definitely find a lot of great ideas that can definitely change their business. So looking forward to hear your feedback after the event. Yeah.
definitely. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in India next year.
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yes.
See ya.
Thanks you.